If I asked you the question, what is the opposite to remember, the word remember? Like me, at first you would probably say it is the word to forget. To forget is the opposite to remember. Actually, the opposite to remember is to dismember. To dismember. And I don't know about you, but I think of William Wallace when he was killed, how the king dismembered his body and sent 4 parts of his body to 4 parts of Britain. And there's a dismembering of a body. So there's a separation. That's what I think of when I think of dismember. When Adam and Eve chose to disobey the will of God, there was a dismembering of fellowship between us and the Godhead. God then immediately set out to bring us back together. And right through the Old Testament, you see God in the process of bringing us back to Him. And this culminates in Jesus. And the reason I'm talking about this is I'm often asked, what do you mean by the finished work of Christ? What do you mean by the finished work? Great question. And in one sense, this is what it means. That in Adam and Eve, there was a dismembering of fellowship between us and the Godhead. In Jesus, there was a remembering of us to the Godhead. See, at what is generally called the Last Supper, I call it the First Supper, but anyway, we won't go there. At what is generally called the Last Supper, Jesus says, "This is the blood of the new covenant." Then he hands out the bread and the wine, and he said this, "Do this in remembrance of me." See, in Adam and Eve, there was a dismembering of us to God. In Christ, there is a remembering of us to God. So remembering, in that sense, is more than just a mental assent to what Jesus was about to do through his death, burial, resurrection, ascension, glorification. He is saying, I am bringing you back to the Father. I'm bringing you back. I'm remembering you. You were dismembered in the garden. I'm now remembering you back to the Father. And that's why it says what God has, we quite often you'll hear in a marriage ceremony, what God has joined together, let not man put asunder. We don't use that word asunder anymore. But do you know what it means? What God has joined together, let not man dismember. Which is why marriage is so important, because it's a picture of Christ and the church. It is not just a piece of paper, as I've heard a lot through my lifetime. Why get married? It's just a piece of paper. Oh, no, it's not. It is so precious and so much more. It shows us how God has remembered us back to Him. So that is one aspect of the finished work of Christ. He's brought us back.